Okay, good afternoon, students. This is going to be a really quick, short, fast little instructional video. I know my videos sometimes tend to be a little bit over an hour long because I want to go through a lot of steps and explain everything to you. But unfortunately today I'm really crunched for time and I want to try and get this out to you guys as quickly as possible. So I'm going to skip going through the textbook using the sample company, and I'm just going to go ahead and go straight into the chapter 7. Excuse me. Yeah, the chapter 7, case 1 steps. So you see, I already have my case 1 company opened up, and we're just going to go ahead and kind of jump into it. So let's see here. I'm going to just try and set my screen up so I can get everything's ready and just kind of get started on everything. So what is chapter 7? Well, chapter 7 is payroll. So we're going to be talking about how to do payroll. And so the main thing we're going to focus on, and it's a really quick and short little chapter too. So that's another reason why I'm just going to kind of try and just go ahead and do case 1 at the same time to explain what we're doing and why we're doing it. So we're going to learn how to add an employee, how to add payroll related ledger accounts, and then how to record payroll expenses and liabilities in QuickBooks. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to come over here and we see payroll. Okay, so this is where you're going to go. You're going to go to your side menu here. All right, and we're going to click on payroll. All right, now do not click get started or anything over here. There is absolutely nothing you need to do over here. Did I open the wrong company again? I think I did. All right, hold on. I'm gonna try and see if I can figure this out. I have more than one class, so I was like, something's not right, and that always confuses me because I have more than one class. So let's get that one over here. All right. Okay, this is the one I was at the end. Okay, so we're gonna click on payroll. All right, now, again, I want to stress to you that in no way, shape, or form should you do anything as far as having to purchase anything or create a test run or anything like that. Okay, so you click on view plans, right, and it's going to try and take you somewhere crazy. Well, we don't want to do that. Okay, so we don't want that. So don't click on that. So it's going to take you to some crazy screen that we don't need or want to go to. All right, so so again, don't click on anything like that. So if your screen looks like this and you click on view plans, it's going to take you to some crazy website you don't want to go to. All right, it doesn't matter. We're not going to do workers' comp or get a quote or anything like that. We're not going to set up any contractors. All right, so hopefully your screen looks very similar to my screen. And all I want you to do is I want you to come up here. It says not ready for payroll, but still want to track employees' time. Just click add employee. It should work, hopefully. There we go. So all we're going to really be doing is just adding employees. Okay. In no way, shape, or form do you need to sign up for anything, put in a credit card, nothing. Okay. We're not going to start anything. So everything we're going to do and we're going to talk about when it comes to payroll, we're not going to actually turn payroll on. So just make sure that when you're clicking on it, we're not turning payroll on. All right. So I just really wanted to stress that to you guys just to make sure there's no confusion. All right. So we're going to go ahead and exit out. We'll go ahead and do this. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add some new employees. I'll go back to step 1 about adding the accounts. We've added accounts before, so it's not necessarily a new step for us, but I do want to go ahead and talk about how to add a new employee. So again, what did I do? I came over here, I clicked on payroll, clicked on employees. This is the screen that came up. No, I don't want to view plans. No, I don't want to purchase anything. No, I don't want to activate anything. No, I don't want to turn anything on. Okay, I want you to just skip all of that, and we're just going to come up here and click add employee. All right, and that's what should happen. This little window should pop up. Okay, so the first employee we're going to add is Ben Franklin. Okay. Now, a really quick feature is like as you're filling this in, you notice this auto filled in. You can change how you display the name. It doesn't, it's just a neat little feature. You can come down here and start typing in their address. And all this information is provided on your case one PDF. So I'm literally just filling it in. Okay. So we got their name, we got their address. All right. So obviously when you're doing payroll, you also have to put in a lot of personal information. So you would typically put in their social security number, when their hire date is, what their billing rates are, if they are, paid by an hour. You can put that information in here. You can also put in their personal information, which would be like their date of birth and their gender if they so choose to identify. Another piece of information, this is for employee ID, is usually unique to your company. Your company may or may not assign employee IDs to each of your employees. If they do, you would just simply put that number in here. Now, oddly enough, the employee ID number that's provided looks very much like a social. Okay. But we'll go ahead and type that in. And once you type in the information, you can just go ahead and click save. All right. Now, when we do that, your screen's going to look a little different. All right. So again, do not click anything about getting started. Okay. So now this is how your screen should look. All right. So we have yet another employee to add. So we're going to click add an employee. Now, here's what it says, turn on payroll. Do not turn payroll on. Okay, do not turn payroll on. So click not right now. That's all I gotta do. So again, don't click anything where you have to start any kind of free trial run, put in any kind of credit information, turn anything on. Nope, you're not doing that. So the second employee we're gonna add is Miss Betsy Ross. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and come down here to the address. And then we're going to scroll down and go ahead and put in her employee ID number. And then click save. And that is it. That's all we have to do to add our employees. So now we see we have two employees. Two employees. All right, so let's go ahead and go back up to step one. All right, so step one, we had to add some new accounts. So we can go ahead and go into our chart of accounts. And we're going to add two new accounts. All right, so really quickly, talking about payroll accounts. So we're not using QuickBooks Payroll Online, so we are going to have to create these accounts. So anybody who's ever had experience actually using QuickBooks Online, you may say, "Oh, my payroll looks a little different." Well, it's because it's turned on. We're not turning it on here. All right. So the accounts we're going to create just a minimum of two accounts. We're going to create a payroll expense account and a payroll liability account. So let's talk about payroll and why do we have an expense account and why do we have a liability account? So first, an employer agrees to pay its employees a salary per month or an hourly rate. In either case, for the agreed upon salary or hourly rate times, amounts are recorded to the payroll expense account. All right. So whatever their salary is or whatever their hourly rate is, all right, that's an expense to you as an employer that you pay them. That's an expense. So it's going to record to your payroll expense account. All right. Now, depending on the state you live in, employees are often required to have an estimated amount of federal and state income taxes withheld from their paychecks by their employers. All right. So the amount that you have to withhold from their paychecks, and no, we're not, there is a full accounting class for payroll that teaches you what amounts to withhold and how to determine those amounts to withhold. That is not this chapter. This chapter is literally just how to record it in QuickBooks. All right, so if you are interested in payroll, if you have not already taken the payroll class, I encourage you to take payroll. It's really essential to anybody who is wanting to study accounting or business. All right, now, again, whatever the agreed salary or hourly rate is for the employee, that is an expense to the employer. So that's going to be recorded to the payroll expense account. Again, depending on what state you live in, you may have federal and state income taxes withheld from their paycheck. So you as an employer are responsible for withholding those income taxes and paying them to the U.S. Treasury Department on behalf of the employee. So when we withhold, well, we're not going to expense that. We literally put it in a liability account because that's money that's owed to the U.S. Treasury. So we withhold it from their paycheck, put it into a liability account, specifically a payable, and then pay it to the U.S. Treasury on behalf of the employee. In addition to that, we also have to withhold Social Security and Medicare, affectionately known as FICA. So that also would go into the payable account. And basically, we call it a holding account because it's literally just being held in that payable until we pay it to the U.S. Treasury. All right. Third thing, this is an expense and a liability. All right. So again, the expense so far has been what we actually pay them, we expense. What we withhold, federal, state income taxes, and then Medicare and Social Security. All that we withhold from their paycheck goes to a payable. What we pay them for their salary is expensed. What we withhold for their taxes is a payable. All right. Now, the second part, you are as the employer, you have to match their Social Security and Medicare. You have to match their FICA. You are required to match whatever they pay into FICA. You have to match it and pay it into their FICA as well. So that is also an expense to you. So we will literally match their FICA, which is their Medicare and Social Security. We will match their FICA. So that is an expense to us. We'll expense it. And then we also have to put it in that payable because we have to pay it to the U.S. Treasury on behalf. Okay. So to be able to record this, we need to create two accounts. The first account we're going to create is going to be the expense account. All right. So we're going to come down here under expenses. And we're going to create payroll expense. Okay. That's it. And I like to name it payroll expense. Simple as that. Or you can just name it payroll. Okay. Either way, it doesn't matter. You can name it payroll expense or you can just name it payroll. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click save. All right, so there we have created that. And then the next one we're going to do is we want to create the liability account, which is the payroll taxes. Remember that the federal and state income taxes withheld and the Social Security and Medicare taxes withheld, as well as the Social Security and Medicare taxes we have to match. All right, so we're going to click and create another one. This time it's going to be liabilities. We're going to click on liabilities. It should be under other current liabilities. So we'll scroll and we see payroll tax payable. And we're going to go ahead and name it. Payroll tax payable. All right. So we see here we have some other accounts. We have payroll wages and tax to pay, payroll tax to pay, retirement benefits to pay, wages to pay. So that is all to say that, yes, we're simplifying things for just the purpose of just generally understanding QuickBooks and how to navigate QuickBooks. But actual payroll can get very complicated because you'll have benefits. So benefits could be health insurance, retirement that you also withhold from their paycheck and pay on their behalf. So, so you can have a bevy of different types of payable accounts set up to cover anything else you withhold. Payroll wages. Why would wages be a payable? Well, we also learned back in Financial Accounting 1 that sometimes, because remember we talked about the matching concept, we have to match expenses to revenue. Sometimes the accounting period will end before the payroll period ends. So if you get paid twice a week, well, and you're in paydays every Friday, well, the end of the accounting period does not end on every Friday. So we do have to have a wages payable so that you can match your expenses to your revenue. Remember the matching concept. So we talked about that in Financial Accounting 1. So yes, you would have a payroll wages payable, as well as your payroll tax payable, as well as any benefits payable. So yes, those are all possibilities and all accounts that you may or may not have to have open if you are actually doing payroll in real time. Right? We are keeping things simplified, so we're only going to have one expense account and one payable account. Okay? So once that information is in there, we're going to go ahead and click save. All right, so we've created our 2 new accounts. All right, now according to case 1 step 4, it says payroll is paid twice a month. It's paid on the 17th and then paid on the last day of each month. Okay, so it says record payroll, all right, for the 17th based on the information in figure 7.14. All right, so how are we going to record payroll? Okay. So the payment of employees requires gathering information from each employee to determine withholding amounts and payroll expenses. The federal and state governments do provide formulas and tables to help employers calculate these amounts. Since that's not what this class is going to focus on, that amounts are provided to us. Additional taxes, such as unemployment, are going to be ignored for this purpose because, again, we're keeping things simplified. All right. Now, since payroll is a recurring event, it does help to make these checks reoccur, which can be edited for each payroll for changes in hours worked. But we also know that QuickBooks will also autofill. So we don't have to necessarily make them reoccurring because we know QuickBooks also has that feature where it will autofill for us. So we'll be able to look at both examples of like if we make it reoccurring versus if we don't make it reoccurring. All right. So how do we record payment of employees? All right. Well, what do you normally get when you get paid? You get what? A payroll check. So we're going to use the check tax. All right. So we're going to go ahead and come down here and we see vendors, we see customers, and now we see employees. All right. So we'll start with Mr. Franklin. Make sure we have our checking account selected and make sure we change the date. All right, that's very, very important that we always make sure we change the date. All right. Now, let's I didn't put in mailing address. That's okay. Let's look at figure 7.14. All right, we have 2 columns here. We have we have several columns, but we have a column for Ben and we have a column for Betsy. If we look over here under the pay tax withholding column, it says hours if applicable. All right. For Ben, it says MA. Why? Well, Ben is salary and Betsy is hourly. All right. So for Ben, his amount, his paycheck's probably going to be the same every pay period, whereas Betsy's amounts are going to change. So we're going to be recording 2 payroll cycles. Okay. So I keep that in mind. Ben's is going to stay the same. Betsy's will change. So when we go to record the second payroll cycle, we need to pay attention to Betsy's numbers. All right. Now, how do we record this? Well, the first thing we have to do is we're going to here and we want to look at gross pay for Mr. Franklin. Okay. So he gets paid $3,958.33. All right. So gross pay is going to go under payroll expense. So we can just type in the word payroll. All right. So we see a lot of entries for payroll. All right. We want to find the one that's for expenses. So we can come over here to payroll expenses. All right. And we want to put in the amount of $3,958.33. All right. Now, let's look at this table again. That is his gross pay. All right. If we go all the way to the last row, it says the net check amount. Well, that's a different amount than his gross pay. Well, that's because we have the withholding. So we're going to have to also record the withholding to reduce the gross pay so it matches the net pay. Okay. Here's those terms, gross and net. Gross pay is before taxes. Net pay is after taxes. So let me show you how to record, all right, those taxes that we're going to withhold. So let's go to the next line and we'll type in payroll again. All right, now this time we're looking for our payroll tax payable, which is a liability account. So we're going to select our payroll tax payable account, all right, and it's a liability. Now let's stop and think a minute. Let's think about our rules for debits and credits. All right, we are using the check task function, all right, to generate a payroll check for Mr. Franklin. All right, while we're creating a payroll check for Mr. Franklin, we are also creating journal entries for our general ledger. Okay, so when you are recording a check, all right, you are going to be reducing your checking account balance, which is your cash balance. So that is typically your credit entry. Okay, so whenever we record a check, it's usually because we're recording an expense. Either we're purchasing, we're having to pay an expense, or we're purchasing inventory, correct? All right, so in this situation, we're recording an expense. So the expense is recorded as a debit, and the automatic credit entry is to our checking/cash account, because when you write a check, you're basically reducing your checking account balance. You're reducing your cash balance, you know. All right, so right now, the debit and credits that are going to be journalized with this writing this check is a debit to our payroll expense account and a credit to our checking account. Okay, all right, but now we also need to record the payroll taxes that we're going to withhold. All right, so if this line means a debit, okay, because it's an expense account, we're now about to record a payable, which is a liability account. What a liability is always recorded with initially? A credit. So there's no column that says debit or credit. So how do we make sure this line is recorded as a credit? Because again, QuickBooks knows that this is automatically a debit, and then we're automatically going to credit checking. So there's no column for debit and credit like a journal entry there. Okay. All right. So we need to be able to tell QuickBooks we want to credit our payroll payable account. So we do that by entering a negative. We enter a negative. Okay. So that's going to tell them that we're also going to credit our payroll payable account. Okay. So looking back at figure 7.14, the total amount of employee withholding is $845.11. Okay. Now we're not breaking it up, federal withholding, Social Security withholding, Medicare withholding. Those could each have their own payable account, and we can record them in their own individual payable account, but we're simplifying things. So we're just putting everything into one payroll tax payable account. All right. So when I enter that line, let's look what happens. Okay. Now our check amount has changed. See, it reduced our check amount. So it's subtracting our withholding amount from the gross pay. And our new check amount now matches the net amount on the table. Okay, so you see how that works. All right, we're doing two birds killing two birds with one stone. We are reducing their gross pay to match their net pay. And the amount we're reducing their gross pay is the withholding amount that we're withholding from their paycheck. And we're also recording it to that payable account. Okay, so we're doing a lot of things at once, right? But we're not done. We're not done. We also have the portion of Social Security and Medicare that we have to match. So how we're going to record that? So we're going to record that all in the same check. So we're going to come up here and we're going to do payroll expense again. We want to hit our payroll expense account again. Okay. And this time we're going to put in the employer payroll tax expense because we have to match their Social Security and the Medicare. We have to match their FICA. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to record that as an expense because that is an expense on our books. So not only is their gross pay an expense on our books, but the amount of Social Security and Medicare are required to match and pay on their behalf is also an expense. Okay. But wait, that now messed up our check amount. What do we do? Well, we're not done yet. Okay, we've got one more line to do, right? Okay, so just like this amount that we withheld from their check and put into a payable, this amount that we're matching and going to pay on their behalf, we're going to put in that payable as well. All right, and just like here when we had to put a negative in front of it, we're going to put a negative in front of this amount too. Okay, and now that changes us back to the proper net amount for the check for Mr. Franklin. So let's talk about what we did here. Again, we went ahead and expensed out our portion that we had to match. Okay, and we have to pay the U.S. Treasury that amount we have to match. So what we did was we went ahead and put it in that payable account, that holding account. Okay, just like we did the amount we withheld from their paycheck, we put in the payable. The amount we have to match, we're going to put in the payable. And then what we're going to do is later on, we're going to write a check or process a payment to the U.S. Treasury for the amount we withheld from their paycheck and the amount we matched. So that's why we put them both in the payable. They're going to sit in that payable until we process payment to the U.S. Treasury. All right. So again, we want to make sure that this amount matches the net check amount that's on the table. All right. And once we feel fairly confident that we've entered the correct information, our amounts are correct, our total is correct, we have correct employee, the correct payment date, the correct bank account selected, we can click Save and New. Let's go ahead and click Save and New. All right, now we're ready to go on and see it automatically changes the check number. Now we're going to select Miss Betsy Ross. Okay, we're going to keep the date the same because they're both being paid on the same pay date. All right, and so now with Miss Betsy Ross, let's start with her. We're going to start off with payroll expense. Okay, we want to select our payroll expense account, and her gross pay is $1,569.50. That's her gross pay, right? She worked a total of 73 hours, and she makes a total of $21.50 an hour. So we multiply $21.50 times 73. That shows her gross pay of $1,569.50. All right. So just like we do with Mr. Franklin, we have to now record the amount of taxes that we withheld from her paycheck. So we're going to go back into payroll, but this time we are looking for our payroll tax payable account. And we're going to enter in the employee withholding total. All right, so just like we did with Mr. Franklin, we're going to put in a minus sign, and then we're going to put in the total employee withholding. All right, so let's see what that does to our amount. So now our total equals $1,234.41. And if we go back to our figure 7.14 and go down to the net check amount for Ms. Betsy, it equals $1,234.41. Okay, so now when we go to process this check, it'll process for the amount that she's to be paid, which is her gross amount less the amount we had to withhold for taxes. But we're not done. Just like for Mr. Franklin, we have to still match her Social Security and Medicare, and we have to report that expense and set up that payable as well. So we're going to go ahead and do that using this same check. So we'll go back into payroll expense. And we're going to record the portion we have to match, which is the employer payroll tax expense, which for us is $120.07. That's what we have to match. And then we're going to go ahead and create the payable for it. Because we're going to pay them both at the same time, the amount we withheld from her paycheck plus the amount we had to match. All right. So now that brought her back to her correct total. And once we know that we're back to her correct total, everything looks good, we can go ahead and click Save and Close. All right. So we have now recorded 2 payroll checks. Okay, 2 payroll checks. Now, if we go on to step number 6, we see we have another table. Why? Well, because remember we have 2 payroll cycles every month. We have one on the 17th of every month, and then another one on the last day of the month. So we're going to record another set of payroll checks. All right. And we're going to use figure 715. All right. So remember when I told you how Betsy's hourly and her numbers are going to be different, we have to pay attention to that. All right. So let's go ahead and click on the plus new. We're going to click check. All right. Now we're going to change the date. All right. Make sure you always change that date. It's very important. So let's go down here and let's select Mr. Franklin. All right. Now, do you want to pre-fill? See, so I did not select make reoccurring when I made Mr. Franklin's check. I didn't do that. Why? Because we can do this. Click yes. It's reoccurring. All right. Now, all you want to do at this point is you just want to double check the numbers have not changed. So Mr. Franklin is salary. His numbers should stay the same. All right. So this will just save you a whole bunch of time. So we just look at this and everything. So now we don't have to really do the step where we make it reoccurring because, like I said, QuickBooks has it to where, hey, the last time you use this employee, do you want to just autofill with the same information? Well, since Mr. Franklin's salary and his numbers are always the same, yes, and have it autofilled. So once that's done, you can go ahead and click Save and New. That was easy peasy, right? Okay. So now we've gone on to check number 10. So now it's Miss Ross's turn, Betsy Ross. And see, it autofilled it in too. But don't get, I've seen too many students do this where they just go ahead and click Save and Close and you're done. No, Miss Betsy is hourly. Her numbers change. So we don't have to mess with what accounts. We just have to mess with the amount. So the first thing I want you to do is change her gross pay. It should be $1,462. Next, we're going to change the amount of employee withholding. All right, remember your negative sign, $312.13. All right. Next, the portion we match. Okay, the portion we match, Social Security and Medicare that we match, we now have to expense it, and it's be $111.84. And then we want to go ahead and create a payable for that amount we have to match. So put in your negative, so that way you know QuickBooks, you're telling QuickBooks to credit that payable account for that amount we had to match. All right. Now that we've entered all those numbers based on the table, we want to make sure that our check total matches the net check amount on figure 715. Okay. So once that is done, we can go ahead and click Save and Close. All right. So we have now recorded 4 payroll checks. 4 payroll checks. Let's go back to employees. Okay. So we can run reports. And so I just basically said, went to their employee, got that employee line, clicked on run report. All right. And we just put in the date. I just always use the same date range. You know, there's no name. Run report. All right. And you could look to see if there's anything information. All right. I just wanted to show you that that's not what we need to do, but you can run reports for your employees. You can do all sorts of things, but that's not the reports we're going to run. I just kind of wanted to show you some things you can do when you're in here under the employees. Okay. Now, what reports are we going to run? All right. Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to run our good old-fashioned trial balance. All right. Our good old-fashioned trial balance. All right. You should be very familiar with this report now. All right. So here's our trial balance. All right. So I want you to be able to compare this to figure 716 in your case 1 to make sure all your amounts match. All right. So there should be some new accounts we see here. All right, so let's go ahead and immediately look at our liabilities, and we should see a payroll tax payable. All right, now let's click on it real quickly. What is on the payroll tax payable? All right, that's all the payables we set up. That's the amount that we're withholding, as well as the amount that we withhold from their paycheck, as well as the amounts that we had to match. All right. Okay. So that's what all those entries are right there. The amount that that's the amount that we held from their paycheck. Okay. So we see that's the amount we withheld from their paycheck from the 17th. That's the amount we withheld from Mr. Franklin's paycheck on the 31st. Okay. This is the amount we withheld from Miss Betsy. And then that's the other amount we withheld from Miss Betsy. So we can see that for each of their paychecks. Okay. All right. So let's go back to our report. All right. So we see that's our payroll. And then we have also our payroll expenses. Let's click on that really quickly. So in the payroll expenses, we're not only going to see 2 gross pay amounts for each employee, but we're also going to see the portion we had to match for FICA and Social Security. So that's what we're going to see here under payroll expense. So we see their gross pay, which are these big numbers, and then these smaller numbers is the Social Security and FICA that we are required to match and pay on their behalf. All right. All right. So once we know, so again, once your trial balance looks good, everything matches, you want to go ahead and export that as a PDF and attach that to your homework assignment. All right. And you also want to do your transaction reports. All right. So once you create and print or create and export transaction reports. So the first one it says to do is to create a transaction report for the checking account. So how did I do that? How did I do that? All right, so I'm already in here in my trial balance. That's the only report I had to run. I'm already in my trial balance. And I come over here and I just click on the blue hyperlink for my checking account. And this creates a transaction report for checking. So I want you to go ahead and export that as a PDF and upload that as part of your homework. All right. And it also wants you to do it for the payroll tax payable. Again, you click on that hyperlink and it creates the transaction report for the payroll tax payable account. So you would, again, just export that as a PDF and upload it. Okay. All right. And the last report you guys always have to do is, of course, your transaction detail by account. Go ahead and close to classic view, put in your dates. There's your transaction detail by account. Export that as a PDF as well, and you'll upload that as your homework attachment. So that is it for chapter 7. It's really short, really quick, really simple. All right, I wanted to go ahead and get that done and get that recorded and out to you guys before the weekend. So I hope you guys have a great weekend. I hope this video really helps you. If you have any questions or if you don't understand why we're recording something the way we are, or if you've had a different experience with payroll, feel free to reach out to me and email me and let me know about it. And I'll be glad to answer any questions or concerns you may have. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you next week.